Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? I can see you up in the chat here. Yes, you can hear me. Fantastic. Well, welcome to this afternoon. We're going to be talking about all things HR in
Mm.
2026, and we've got a lot of stuff to cover here. I've got a whole notebook here, and we're very excited to have Charlotte Hall with us as well today, who is the VP of People for Sansoni Management, and you've been in HR for I'm
Forever,
going to be
yes.
very, I'm going to be very kind to you. 20 plus years. Is that not right, Charlotte?
Yes, 20 plus, not 30. 20
Um,
plus.
so Charlotte's going to give us her insights, I suppose, on what's happening over the next 12 months. There is a lot of stuff happening. So we'll maybe just sort of kick right off. And I think number one, this is probably being kicked off a little bit by the Victorian government in saying that we're going to bring out a policy this year, but it's all about flexible working.
Mm,
So flexible working, I think, sort of post-COVID is here to stay, and
yep.
it's obviously I think a thing that a lot of people look for now when finding a new job or when hiring. So I suppose, how does flexible working in terms of policy and making sure that I would imagine a lot of SME owners and small business owners don't actually have any policies in place
Yeah.
for flexible working. It's so, oh, I want to work from home every Tuesday. Oh, that's fine. You can work from home every Tuesday.
Yeah.
What what should companies be doing now, and what should owners be doing over the next 12 months to make sure that it's not just oh, we've got a secret handshake here that you can work from home every Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, we know now that it's way more than a handshake, right?
Yeah.
Like it's actually legislation now. So for us as business owners, it's really, really important that we have policy in place about this. And basically, if we just sort of cut it back to the simplicity of what the
Mm.
legislation means, it means no longer is it a nice to have, it's no longer that handshake. It's all around if hybrid working is now the bare minimum as far as the expectation goes around can you actually work remotely or not, right? So now it's on the onus will be on employers to prove actually no, we can't, that role can't be remote.
Mm.
Okay. As opposed to let's negotiate as employer employee and perhaps we'll work out something that works for both of us. No longer is it that. It's actually on us as owners now to prove that no, there's a requirement to be in every day. That's the major difference. There needs
Mm.
to be policy in place around, hey, we need you in the office or we need you out on site or we need you at events every day. And here's why. And it needs to be structured and in writing and clear expectations. Those are the big
Because I
differences.
think there's a thing even just where you're working at home as well. Because I
Yeah.
think you're as a business owner, you're there for the employee safety and making sure that they're working at the right desk or conditions. So it's not just a matter of fact anymore of, oh yeah, you can work from home and people are working from bar stools at the dining table and breaking their back, and you're going to need to end up paying for a chiropractor to sort them out. So that's now a part of policy as well, isn't it?
Huge. Yeah.
Where their actual work set up and how they're set up to work at
Yeah.
home is a huge part as well.
Yeah. There's WHS policy now that's in place. If we're going to be at working from a home office, as an example, right? How do we actually set that up? What risk management procedures do we have in place to
Mm.
do that? COVID taught us that we need to do that to look after our people when they're at home. And now, we're legislating it so that people are safe when they're working. They're safe at home. They're not going to, as you say, like do their back every day because they're not sitting in an ergonomic
Yeah,
chair. Yeah.
because I suppose everybody's probably kind of watching the Victorian government as well, and if that
Mm,
policy does go in place, because I think
mm.
they're more or less mandating that you need to have very hard evidence that someone needs to be in every day, or they can work from home
Yeah.
2 days a week. That's
Yeah.
essentially what they're putting
Right
together.
now,
So
the legislation says
yeah,
you must prove that someone needs to be in every day. If an employee came and said, I have a good case as to why I'd like to do my work remotely, it's up to the onus is on the employer to prove that.
okay,
So that would be a big difference and something massive for SMEs out there to really be aware of.
yeah.
Mm.
So highlights what we need to do. So they need to have some policies in place. So if you do have flexible working, you need to
Yeah.
have a policy in place and what days they work from home. It's not
Yeah.
I'm just going to choose what day I work from home. So make sure policies are in place,
Yeah.
and obviously making sure that people's workspace from their home is set up correctly so that they do have,
Totally. Yeah.
a proper space to work. They do have an actual proper desk chair.
Mhm.
They have their monitor set up.
Yeah.
Then they've not got, as I said, working from like a weird sort of high chair, and they're in a position that they can actually do their day-to-day job at home.
Yeah,
That's on the
exactly.
employee to make sure that all those things happen.
We need to remember too that this is a great perk if we can do it.
Mm.
Sometimes we've been bitten. There's always going to be moments when we've been bitten by people that take advantage, unfortunately. But remembering 95% of people take, are so grateful to
Yeah.
have that they'll make a massive difference about what they do. And so the perk for the business and for the employee is equal, in my opinion, in that you will get, in some cases it can be the difference of a 5K pay rise.
Mm.
If I can work from home, perhaps I don't need that extra cash right now.
Yeah.
So these are things to sort of be mindful of when you're putting your policies in place, because a lot of business owners that I've worked with have sort of said, I need them in every day. I need them here, here, here. Cool. Perhaps make sure we've got really strong expectations and accountabilities in place, and then maybe it'll allow us to be more
Yeah.
flexible.
So the way I say it is, I mean, a lot of times it actually comes down to a business and how they've structured it to
Yeah.
make sure that there's clear reporting metrics or what's the expectation of
Yeah.
the staff member themselves.
Yeah.
So we're expecting you to do X every day. What's the KPI reporting that we're getting you to do to make sure you're doing your job?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's not the business owner's fault if they're,
Yeah.
they want them in every day. Is that because maybe they're micromanaging them or
Exactly. So
yeah,
trust doesn't become an issue
yeah,
when everyone knows what's the expectation,
yeah.
which is awesome, and what's achieved with policies and systems that can really help, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And there's some huge software and AI stuff now as
Yeah,
well that helps all the KPI sort of manage
definitely.
stuff as well. On the next one we've got, and this is going to be a massive one this year, is all about employee well-being.
Mm.
So what are businesses doing to help employees' well-being, from legal, from what their priorities are as a business, and I suppose from the day-to-day management of all the teams and making sure I think it was actually I think talking to you this morning, and I read a report in the Australian, the newspaper did a whole report on all the different sort of top corporate businesses across Australia today and what they do and all the benefits that all the employees get for health and well-being, from longer mat leave.
Hmm.
A lot of them are giving partner mat leave
Yeah.
as well now. I was reading ones, they've got a weekly, they can bring their dog to work. There's all these random things that large businesses are doing.
Yeah.
And then what they're saying, which I find really interesting, is that a lot of staff are looking now not necessarily for the highest salary.
Hmm.
So if they've got, 3 or 4 job offers on their plate, it's not always actually to do with salary, but a lot of it can be to do with actually the wellness and the things
Without a
that are
doubt.
happening inside the business. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what are you seeing
Yeah.
currently in some of the ones
Well,
that you've been
exactly
working
that. I
with
mean,
brands?
we were talking about this earlier. I did a research project about 18 months ago now on a pretty big sample size globally with another global business, right? And I think we had nearly 600 staff. And amongst that, there was, I think, about nearly, don't quote me, you're not in the business, it's fine. About 70% of those were Gen Z or below. So we're doing kind of a generational type thing. What do people want
Hmm.
in relation to their generations? Because as we know, our Gen Zs are about to all become business owners and managers and leaders, and the biggest chunk of people out there in the workforce. Now, why do I bring this all in with psychosocial hazards? What they care about compared to perhaps what I care about are very significantly different as far as how would you rate your top 10 most important things in a business, right? You know, the longevity isn't as important as teach me a truckload so that I can move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing. Average tenure of people in a role like that now, or a Gen Z, is 12 months. So it's
Yeah.
a lot, right? Why do I bring all that in? Is because they care about what we're doing about our impact on the world, our impact sustainability. What are we doing about the environment and climate change? It's a very real thing. So
So
look for businesses that care.
yeah. So as a small business owner, what do you do to make sure that you're not losing someone after that 12-month period? So, they're coming in,
Yeah.
they're expecting, as we just went through this list, in well-being, they want all these extra perks. They want, your business to be doing amazing things for environment, for
Yeah.
social, for helping your community. They want the business to be doing all these things. And then after 12 months, like, oh, actually, I'm bored of this. I'm going to leave. And we know how, I think we're going to do a bit of a webinar soon about recruitment and how
Yeah.
difficult recruitment is. I talked I think just before Christmas, and we did a webinar about VAs and how obviously so many people have gone down the VA route because recruiting in Australia is so difficult. So
Yeah.
how do you keep hold of the staff then? Culture is one thing, which you talk about, and the wellness of them, but you're looking after them really well. How do you keep them? How do you keep them past that 12-month mark?
That I think you're bang on. So culture, wellness is a huge thing, and psychosocial hazards, which we'll finish on. But also progression. That's super important.
Mm.
We want to work in a role or for businesses that will teach me stuff. So we've got great examples here. We've had people in events move into EA role recently, and so having that change, having something new, fresh, and exciting that's going to teach me something different, add to my skill set. And then inevitably, if I'm learning and wanting to grow to be a business owner myself one day, I'm learning about different functions
Yeah.
within the business as well. Because ultimately, we're breeding that.
Yeah.
That's what the new people coming through, a lot of them want.
So what about for smaller business owners that only have one or two employees? And I
Yeah.
know they would say, well, I've only got, this one
Yeah.
role. There's not actually nowhere unless they take over my job as founder.
Mm.
Where's that person going to go? What
Yeah.
would you say to them to help, I suppose, grow the team members, educate them
Yeah.
so
Sure.
that they stay as well?
I guess it's three-pronged to that.
Yeah.
Some of them are not. And I think it's accepting that reality is that it's more so actually understanding that you are going to have turnover. It
Yeah.
is going to happen. How do we mitigate that, right? So that's the first thing. Because you can. There are great ways to do that now, especially with the help of AI, right? Um, but then also, how do we keep them and progress them is, okay, as we're growing the business, what are some of my duties that can then be trickled down to this employee to help them grow, learn, develop within their career by not leaving me?
Yeah.
What can I do? But Richard Branson says you train everybody up to leave you. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's how you know you've done your job. Okay. So I think when you're working on a preface like that, most people want to work for their bosses. They're not working for their people. They're working for their bosses. We know that. If you treat them well, they'll hang around
Yeah.
well beyond a salary.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think, I think it's important though to have a realistic and quick way of helping someone into a new role and then replacing as well, because it's inevitable. It will happen.
And I suppose a lot of that, even kind of totally going off
Yeah.
topic here,
Yeah.
a lot of that even comes down to their onboarding with you as a company too. So as they're onboarding, and how often are you doing check-ins with that person? Are you doing, 6 monthly, 12 monthly sort of reviews, asking them what they actually want to learn? Are you trying to give them new
Yeah.
information, and rather than them just their day to day is the same every day
Yeah.
and nothing really changes?
Totally.
Because a lot of that's going to come into it too, right? Is
Yeah.
that if you onboard them really well and make sure that you're checking in to ask what they want. And I suppose that comes down to, what HR software people are using as well. And if you don't have something like that in place, then it's very difficult to manage. When was the last check in with that team member?
Yes.
Oh, I've actually not done an annual review in like 5 years.
Yeah. Feels like a year ago.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Because I think, especially in small business, things go so quickly, right? And you lose track of time, and before you know it, someone could have been with you, and you've actually not done a check-in. And a check-in, I think when I mean a check-in, it's not like, oh, hey, Charlotte, how are you today? Things going good?
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's more of an actual sit-down, formal, how has it gone in the last few months?
Totally.
Here's, the KPIs that we set. How are you getting on with them all? Here's the,
HRIS systems are so important for that. I mean, we use Employment Hero, and it is amazing as far as taking a lot of that. Gosh, do I need to schedule that in if I got to do that? There's a lot of pre-built-in triggers that will help you build out a role, but then also how do you manage that role effectively so it helps you to retain talent.
Yeah. And I've been talking about Employment Hero with some of the triggers in there. I mean, I use them all the time. There's, the six monthly, the person's probation period's coming up, which is obviously quite important if you don't think someone's working out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's obviously quite an important trigger as well to celebrate. You've done 6 months, congratulations, that's amazing. And then people's anniversaries on their yearly basis, birthdays. That's an awesome, we celebrate everybody's birthday in here as well, happy birthday. But again, that triggers you to tell you that something's come up. You don't have to remember it in a diary. Again, that's just extra admin stuff that a lot of business owners are doing. Onboarding when someone starts, trying to make note of when everybody's birthday is, trying to make note of, okay, in 3 months' time, I need to check in a week's time, and annual, all those things are kind of done for you, right?
And then as you're growing, you like to keep yourself with your space in building that business still and working the business. The VAs are amazing as well. My VA that I have that helps me with Employment Hero here I would be lost without her. She does a mountain of work, and that platform is brilliant for both of us to be able to manage and engage our team on a daily basis. It's
Mm.
great.
And that's sort of a purpose of it, because the next
Yeah.
next part I want to sort of talk about
Yeah.
is obviously AI is a massive subject which everybody is all over at the moment.
Hmm.
But what I want to kind of talk about is in 2026, there's going to be lots of changes with, I suppose, technology in general, right?
Yeah.
That, especially from an HR perspective, because I think, not that it hasn't mattered before, HR has always mattered, but there's a much bigger emphasis now, I think, on tech and people all sort of coming together so that it's one cohesive system so that people
Hmm.
know what's going on. And I think if you don't have those things sort of gel together in your business, there could be a lot of errors, issues, mistakes,
Hmm.
especially with lots of new legislation, which we'll come on to in a minute, coming in
Yeah.
regarding super and all those sorts of things as well. So I suppose, where is tech coming in, and what sort of tech things are you using now to help with your processes, to help make sure that you're hiring the right people, to
Mm.
help with the onboarding process, to help what things are you
Yeah.
using to make it streamlined, to make sure that there's no, I mean, there's always going to be little hiccups here and there, but to
Yeah.
make sure that when someone comes in, they're like, oh my goodness, this is the most amazing company. They've checked all these boxes before I've even stepped
Yeah.
in the door,
Mhm.
and the amount of workload for someone internal is small.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because especially for small business owners, there's so many things you have to do,
Yeah.
even just to hire somebody, right?
So
So yeah.
do. And so I think so a big one is an HRIS platform. Highly recommend it, even if it's on a subscription-based model, like, via EmpireOne, for example, Empire People. Um, that I would highly, I know I'm selling that, but I would highly recommend
Mm.
that because it can be quite expensive to get the software itself. So Employment Hero, for example, is a great software to cover all of the things you've just discussed. So because business owners aren't always HR managers and aren't always people managers as well. So what do we need? And I know that I love it with businesses that I've worked for. I've been an HR consultant for many businesses along the way. And we have always dealt in an HRIS
Mm.
platform to be able to, A, construct policies, procedures, work out how we're going to treat our people. What are your values? How do we actually sell your employer brand out there in the marketplace, which is really, really important. There's
Super important.
so many facets, right?
You,
Especially now.
you talked
Especially.
about brand there. I mean, that's so
Yeah.
important now for business, right? What is your actual brand online? Because
Mm.
a lot of people now, even when they're searching for a job, the first thing they do is, okay, well, what's the website look like? I'm going to quickly go onto Instagram and see if they've got an Instagram feed and got any posts on there.
Yeah.
Do they have any bad reviews? There's so many things people will check before they even apply to your job.
Without a
Yeah.
doubt. And to that point as well, like we've got the HRIS, which should include, so HR information system, which should include an applicant tracking system so that
Mhm.
we can bring together your LinkedIn, your Seeks, your different job boards that you might be going out to look for people. And it'll bring it all into one platform so that you can sort of see it, and depending on
Yeah,
who you're working
that
with,
makes
right?
sense.
It's really, really important to have that. And then, it's right from engagement of someone out there in the marketplace right through to offboarding. That system looks after everything. And like I said before, I've got a VA that helps me manage it as well
Mm.
internally. So that is in response to your question about automation and tech, that's what I would do. Another thing from talent attraction, and I'll give this little snippet for nothing, would be video. If you are looking to get the top 5% of applicants available to you in the market at the moment, get on video your ad, because 6% of ads are videos at the moment being looked at on LinkedIn. Sorry to explain that a better way. On LinkedIn at the moment, there's only the videos that are on there still makes up 6% of all content only still, right?
Wow.
Yet the click-through rate and the application rate from a video job ad, you are almost 70% more likely to get eyes on that.
That's huge.
Why not do it? We have
Yeah.
to do it. We
Yeah.
know ourselves, it's working for us here, right? So video advertising, first of all, and then using another platform, which is actually quite cheap that I use, which is solo interviewing. Saves you a truckload of time where
So,
people apply.
so talk to me about solo interviewing. What does that entail?
So if we're looking for a CEO at the
Yeah.
moment, if the CEO can apply, we can do a very brief screen. And then from there, I can say to them, hey, I just need you to do a quick video intro for me. I'm going to send you a link. and it'll give you 5 different questions of me asking them a question. And from there, you can just click respond and respond how you would, right? It sends back to me instantly a video that's no more than 5 minutes all up, all put together, where I can say, okay, they've just answered all of these questions. It saves time for me, saves time for them.
So
And this is before we've even looked at resumes.
yeah, so you're basically saving time. So in terms of even the initial phone call screening,
Yeah.
because you've answered all these questions, then the applicant is doing a quick video answering all your
We're seeing
questions.
them.
Yeah, and then you can
Right.
kind of gauge whether you think this person's going to be a right fit or
They're going
not.
to be the right
Yeah,
culture fit. You get so much more from a video than
you
you
do,
do from a piece
100%.
of paper, and having to then do all your research in the background, finding their social footprint to try and find out more about them. Let's just get them to tell us.
Yeah, that's an amazing bit of tech.
Yeah, it is a cool bit of tech. We've been using it here a lot. If anyone's interested, let me know and I'll just shoot out what it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's tech and automation where it saves you time and money is actually putting it all into one HR software that automates a lot of the process and all the heavy lifting for you. And I suppose especially with recruitment, where it brings together into one pipeline, Seek, LinkedIn, and kind of automates the process for you. So that's amazing.
Otherwise, that can be really messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On to the next one here, which is, I suppose, a really big one, which is payday super changes. So talk to me about what's happening this year with payday super changes. Because this will affect, I think, for lots of small businesses, cash flow management. It's going to affect, I suppose, when you pay super. Talk to me about the legislation change and what's happening this year with super.
Yep. So from July 1st, 26 this year, we are now legislated and required by law to pay super on payday or within 7 days of the payday. So why this is different, and a lot of people will probably know this out there if they've been paying it quarterly, or some people 6 monthly or annually. Sometimes, the reason this has come in place is because sadly a lot of businesses have just not been paying. So we needed stronger laws. I think it's a good thing. It is really good for our employees because it's going to compound. It's going to mean more when they retire, which is a great thing. It, with the right financial advice, can still be really good for employers as well, so business owners as well. So I just had to preface it by saying that. So by July 26, we need to have our payday. We've got to have our payroll set up and all of our systems set up so that when we are paid fortnightly, within 7 days, our superannuation fund receives that.
Yeah, so it's on pay. It's not on a monthly basis.
Totally.
So,
we don't get to decide when anymore.
Yeah.
We can't just accrue it, put it in the pay slip and say, hey, we've accrued this for your super. Might pay it in 6 months' time, if you're lucky. We've now got to have that paid within 7 days of when our payday is. So look, what are the risks for business owners out there? The risks are, it's a huge penalty if you don't do it. So I think it's 60%. They're really going to come down hard. And the reason being is because it's been really tricky to track by the government in the past. And so there's been a lot of missing super contributions being flushed out that are from 5-10 years ago, right? And, what can you do about it now? Some businesses are not even open now.
Too late.
So that's right. And that's why they're doing payday super now. It's going to be tough, but it is really, really important now to be all over your payroll process, to have someone that understands that legislation. If you've got your payroll offshore, which a lot of people do, making sure you've got your right systems around it and that you've at least got some touch locally, because it is a very complex local law. Yeah.
Well, I suppose the whole payroll part is quite a complex thing. So, especially if you do, if you do have, payroll offshore, it's always good to have someone locally checking to make sure that, because legislation does change all the time, right? And even for people's annual leave and leave loading and all these additional things that a lot of people don't know about or bother about, they need to have these checks and balances.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's where a great HRIS will help as well. Employment Hero again. Oh God, I should speak for them. They have Employment Hero payroll as well. Brilliant. Brilliant system. Everything's updated in there as the legislation happens. So you don't have to worry. Like me being in HR, for years I would have to just be stalking all of the legislation updates
Mm.
across multiple wards.
Fair Work is a safe tab in there, was it?
Oh, it still is. They need the information, but Employment Hero will now update all of your
Yeah.
policies. So you can have your policies in there, for example, with the psychosocial hazards. Now that that's changed to legislation, not just a nice to have, they can update that. They'll send you a link saying, hey, this has just been mandated. You have to have a, a prevention clause in place by this date. Here's what we suggest you do.
Mm.
All
Okay.
right. Good stuff.
So super. Basically, you need to make sure that you've got
Super.
a super in checks and balances. Make sure your pay will understand it,
Yeah.
and make sure that you've got everything and a policy put in place internally for how you're going to manage those changes. Essentially, so
Absolutely.
super now needs to be paid from July 1st, every single pay run.
Every
So
time.
exciting. So what I want to talk about now is just so this is one that's coming up a lot is diversity,
Equity and inclusion.
equity, inclusion. That's the one.
Mm.
So that's moving from values to policy.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happening,
Yeah.
right? So talk to me about that. So what does that mean for small businesses and not big corporates? Because big corporates have kind of, a lot of them have got their own, they don't actually operate under Fair Work, which a lot of people don't probably know, but big corporates don't operate under Fair Work, and they actually create their own. As long as it meets Fair Work, they actually create their own policies and contracts and everything.
Yeah.
But what does it mean for small business owners? What does this mean?
Yeah. By the way, we can do our own policies as well.
You can do your own policies.
They just have to, it has to be underpinned by the NES, exactly, right? And depends on what awards and things like that. But big corporates definitely don't quite feel the sting like we do. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is, when we talk about it becoming a cool value to have, I'm going to go and work for them, they're really big in D&I. It's now not just that. It's now not just that nice to have. It is in policy. So basically it means that we have to run a ethical business that is really, that we are really looking at running something that's really diverse. We're open to that we show that we can actually answer some specific questions around how we're diverse. And if you look that up, you'll be able to find that. Equity is really important. Equity is coming through from, say, gender, and pay equity is a good one. Pay equity has been a big one for years now, and we're still 20 odd years off having gender pay equity, which is really interesting, but we're working towards it, right? So those things, and having a policy around, hey, this is how we feel about it as a business, and this is the stuff that we're working towards to be in line with, doing the right thing and being ethical out there in the workplace and attracting the right people. Yeah. And then inclusion that's all around behavior. So when we're talking about an inclusion policy, it's not just, do I feel included, in this scenario, in this team, in this work? It's more about, do I feel included in a moment, in conversations? It comes back to psychosocial hazards. If we don't feel like we've got a sense of inclusion in the workplace, it's not smart practice because we'll lose people, but it's really important.
That comes back to, I suppose, the very first point we talked about.
Yeah.
Is working from home.
Yeah.
Right. So how, people want all these things that they want, they want to be looked after. They want a good company culture. They want the business to be doing, all these community things. And then we just talked about, the DEI as well. How do they come together? Because if people are working remote, that kind of, to me, seems excluding, not including. Right?
Does,
right. So then how do small businesses mitigate that and make sure that people do feel included? Because I think Teams meetings can feel, it's not like
it's not the same.
It's not like a water cooler chat, that you're both getting water at the same time and you just chat, how was your weekend, what happened, you're missing out on some stuff. How do business owners now mitigate that exclusion, inclusion, but also have the whole, well, I want to work from home 3 days a week?
Yeah. This comes down to emotional intelligence. And I strongly suggest if business owners out there have not done any training on emotional intelligence to go and do it, because it's all about how do you work out what's best for the human, what's best for the person that you're working with. It depends on the size, right? You do need structure and policy, and it needs to be, this is what we have in place for our entire business. But then there's got to be a level of, hey, we'll work with you, John, based on what works for you, and then there's a give and take expectation around it. So it's you're right. I think,
Yeah.
like inclusion is hard to find if you're not necessarily in the office
Yeah.
very often. However, there's some companies and some businesses that do it well. So it's not a one size fits all. It really depends on the role and the type of business
Hmm.
as well. So online businesses, for example, all of them are online
Yeah,
and can still
they're
feel
all from
really
home.
included,
Yeah.
and they love it. That's that
Yeah.
personality trait that loves it. So
I'm the opposite. I hate working from home.
yeah, yeah,
I generally hate it. Like I couldn't
yeah,
actually I do work from home a couple of days a week because
yeah,
of children commitments,
yes. You'd
unfortunately.
rather be here, not
But I
there.
hate it. I'd rather be here. Sometimes I'll drop them off, and even
Yeah,
though it's like a hour and a half commute here and there, and I have to
yeah.
leave early, I would still prefer to come to the office.
Well, see, I personally love a balance, right?
Yeah,
So and this is what I mean.
yeah,
I'm a 3 and 2. I love my 2 days from my home office. I get so much done,
yeah,
and it's for me, and plus I've got a big commute. So for me, I love
yeah,
that. But yes, I couldn't do always remote
yeah.
either. So,
I'd struggle with it. But yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
So you and I are a good example of that,
Some
right?
people work, I think, like my wife works really well from home.
Yeah,
She's an analyst for one of the big four, and
yeah,
she worked from home. And this is that thing, sort of the funny thing. She worked 50% from home pre-COVID,
yeah.
So
And so she's
um
already used to
I
it.
was used to it. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is a big thing. I know
How we go for
we've
time?
we've run a little bit over.
Oh, have we?
Um we've got a couple of topics, but one of them I just want to touch on, which is before we kind of wrap up a little bit,
Mm,
was skill shortages. So
mm,
this is going to be a massive one, I think, over the next 12 months, as I
mm.
suppose immigration does tighten up probably a little bit in Australia over the next 12
Yeah.
months.
Hmm.
Um, and getting all those skilled migrants across, and people, business are expanding, population still expanding. There's hiring is still super hard. What would be your recommendation over the next 12 months of business owners looking to, you know, but hope a lot of Empire One members are scaling their business, and hiring is going to be top on the agenda. I'm sure you've all got a plan in place for when you're going to be hiring over the next 12 months, and when you hit certain milestones. What would you recommend over the next 12 months for hiring? Because hiring is a massive part of the business and can take up so much time, right?
I can take up a lot of
Yeah.
time.
So
Yeah.
what would your recommendations be over the next 12 months on hiring? Yes, hiring locally. Yes, if you don't have people don't have a plan in place for hiring VAs and overseas, you definitely have a plan in place for that too, because
Mm.
as we talked about before, you can take a huge chunk of different tasks away from your
Mhm.
team in Australia and local. But what would your recommendation be over the next 12 months for people hiring, and
Mm.
how they should do it
Yeah.
and how they do it well is more to the purpose.
Yeah, I think when you don't know what you don't know, you don't know what to focus on to do it well, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially with hiring. If that's not what you do every day, like me, then it's not necessarily a muscle that you've flexed. So I think, or that you've trained, the part of the bun. But so I think that some of the biggest things or misconceptions is the advertising stuff I was talking about. That's a big, big
Mhm.
part of it, right? A lot of people don't know about that. And it's a massive part of attracting the right talent. If you're putting written advertising out there, don't sound like everyone else.
Mm.
Write a story, make it fun, stand out. That's a big one. And then
Make sure they've got a good chat GTP prompt.
it's got that.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah.
It's so important to have it. And then I would say, skilled for training, micro learning, online learning, and we talked about promotion earlier.
Mm.
This is all stuff that doesn't cost a lot of money, because I think a lot of business owners, small business owners think, oh, it's going to cost me too much. It's going to be a lot. A lot of that doesn't have to, take up too much of your budget, but it can give you a lot back
Yeah.
as far as your people happiness goes. So look all those up.
Yeah, it's funny we're talking about because I worked in North America for quite a few years. Not for huge corporate, but a couple fairly large corporates. And North America's got such a ridiculous structure, and it's
Mm,
kind of like just how every business set up. It's
mm,
about capitalism, right?
mm.
So, but it's how every business set up that you go into a position, and any position in any company, you could become the CEO.
Yeah,
There is a pathway.
yeah.
So you
It's
do
really
all,
cool.
which is really cool, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of, I suppose, businesses think about, okay, if someone's coming in at a entry level admin role on reception on front desk,
Mm,
and that person's a superstar, what do we do to get them into the next role? What are they looking for? What
mm.
other roles in our company could that person do?
Yeah. Which I think
Right?
is amazing, even just for you to say that story because gets people thinking about how to keep people, how do we progress people?
Mm.
That in itself is part of your employer brand that you care about that.
About where they go, what they do, what the
Yeah,
next
because let me
chapter of
tell
their
you, probably about
journey is.
10% of the market highlight that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want people to stop and then
Yeah.
that's the end, right? You
And
want them
yet,
to be
like
doing more.
exactly 80% of candidates care about progression, yet 10% of the market actually talk to it or do it
Mm.
very well. So just do that.
So I suppose that comes into, your quarterly catch-ups with all of
Mm.
your team members. It comes into actually what do they want? What are they really good at? Is
Yeah.
there other positions that we can push them into or micro-learning? I mean, do you have any recommendations for like micro-learning and what people should be using to get the staff? I know LinkedIn have got
Yeah,
a whole micro-learning section that
they
people
do.
can subscribe to, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. But is there other things that
I'm going to
that
send this to Employment Hero because Employment Hero have great micro
okay.
learning, right? And I'm setting some stuff up for us next month. It is it's great. I do use LinkedIn Learning as well. So if you guys are used to that, it's that style on
Mm.
Employment Hero too, but it's done specifically from a people lens,
Yeah.
and things like your psychosocial hazards, etc. There's amazing training
Mm.
in there. We now have to show as a business that we've trained our people on it. There's training built in that platform. A lot of the HRS local platforms are doing it. There's training already there that you can tailor.
Yeah.
So if by like we have to do that now. So I don't want to scaremonger people, but if we get audited at the moment, if businesses out there get audited right now and they haven't addressed it,
Mm.
it's a little bit scary.
Okay.
Mm.
So yeah, I suppose that education around anything,
Yeah.
people love education,
Yeah.
So if you're part of your job, you're getting educated while doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
we're very fortunate that we work in a an education company, so there's education all the time for free for us, which is awesome.
Awesome.
But I suppose for lots of employees, education's not a part. Here's your manual.
Yeah.
See ya, good luck with your job. So I
Mm.
suppose continually upskilling your staff with small education, even team training days where you
Yeah.
get an external speaker in. I've worked for a lot of organizations that do that quarterly, someone
Mhm.
external coming in, training everybody on small things. We had a guy, I think a couple of years ago, that came in and talked all about one percenters. So he took a Tom Capps book. He's like, how do you as a business and all your team upskill your staff on just 1% better every day,
Yeah.
right? 36% better a year,
Perfect.
1% a day, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Here's amazing book, but how do you actually put that into practice and make sure your team are doing that? So I suppose, yeah, business owners now, they need to have this in place so that their team are upskilling.
Yeah.
There's some learning opportunities from them. I suppose that comes down to even the tech piece as well. Are you researching other tech things that you can use
Yeah.
in HR to
Mm.
make it easier for your team members to use, to make learning easy for them? Because I think lots of people get pretty lazy. They get home and they're on their phones or scrolling through Instagram or
And that's what we always do, right?
not that I'm
Like,
speaking about myself here. That's definitely not what I do.
no, we're not doing
No.
dancing TikToks at all.
Yeah.
No, I think that training is super, super important. And I'm always going to say, yes, it's cool to get the how do we get more productive at work, the 1%ers type
Mm.
stuff, and getting that guy in is amazing. And then mixed in on that is compliance and legal and governance, which is stuff that has to happen. We
Mm.
have to train all our people on how to stay safe at work.
Yeah.
And that's now not just physically, it's also mentally.
Yeah. So I
Mm.
suppose we have gone over. So thank you for sticking with us. But I suppose bring it all together. If you are a small business owner and you are looking for some HR help in terms of some software and some advice around that,
Yeah.
we can certainly help you at EmpireOne. And if you are looking sort of planning, I suppose, the next 12 months in terms of recruiting, in terms of VAs as well, because it's a large part. As I said, you'd be lost without your VA for all the stuff you're doing. We do have a quick QR code here that we could pop up here, which if you just pop it on here, let's see if you can see this. I actually get it up.
Seamless.
No, it's not seamless.
We can see it.
Yeah, I can see it,
Yeah.
but no one else can see it. I'll get Amanda to put it in the chat anyways. So
Mm.
we'll read out in the chat here. You can put an appointment with Amanda. She'll go through our bit of an HR strategy call with you about things you can do from a VA perspective over the next 12 months.
Awesome.
And obviously, we've get you set up with employment here as well. If that's something you'd like to look into, we can give you some advice on what it does, what it doesn't do.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's something you're looking for your business over the next 12 months, as I said, it is an incredible platform for just managing all of your HR compliance,
Mm.
which now is becoming obviously a bit more of a crazy environment to manage,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing it through Excels and using a few different softwares. So it just manages it all
Yeah,
for you.
very messy.
I do have one very last thing is just a quick fire question for you, Charlotte.
Go for it.
So, one HR mistake that will cost SMEs the most in the next 12 months.
Um, Not updating their policies.
And having all the staff basically review them.
Yep. And well, not updating their policies and thinking that they can rest on their laurels, given that the legislation has just got so massive now. We are at high risk. I don't want to scare people, but we are. And so if we don't update and train our staff and keep them safe, then, it's going to be a massive challenge. So it'd be probably the biggest risk.
And then next question is, so one policy that every SME should update this year.
Their psychosocial hazards.
That's one.
And what's their prevention plan for that? They should, if they don't have it, should have it now.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll put a recording in so everybody can watch this again. So
yeah,
psychosocial hazards, that's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, it is.
And then one role founders should stop doing themselves. Because I think a lot of I've talked about this a lot. So, you know, being the chief of everything officer, you do not want to be the chief of everything officer. We've all been in that position where you're the person doing everything. So what's one thing that they could take away that they should definitely tomorrow stop doing them?
Well, I'm going to say, HR, admin, getting a system in place will help you not only stop doing all of the admin. So rather than just one role, I'm going to say a percentage of role, right? So if we are I've been a solopreneur and where I've done everything, and without the VA, now that I have a VA, my VA does well over 60% of my workload around admin. Operation.
So you can do the stuff that actually matters, whereas admin is all taken care of for you.
Yeah. Which means you've got more time to sell. We've got more time to get out there. You've got more time to grow your business, right? So systems and admin.
Cool. Two. That was
sorry.
Kind of cheap.
That was it. Sorry.
And then one system that removes the most stress. So what's one system over the next 12 months that SMEs could do? You're going to say it again, Employment Hero?
that sounds waiting. I thought, I don't need to say
made your mind?
Employment Hero. Go get it. They've also, there was a bit of a concern about Seek and Employment Hero being nice to each other, but it looks like it might have calmed down. So
actually, I got an email the other day saying that they've sorted it out.
Yeah, I got it as well. Yeah, so hopefully they has, which I think is a great thing. Yeah. But in all honesty, LinkedIn, get all over LinkedIn. That's where my success has been with recruiting.
Yeah, I feel that LinkedIn's always been a bit of a stronger pool of applicants. You can target a lot better than there as well.
Yeah. So and locally, they're still newer than Seek, so they're a bit cheaper.
It's a good tip.
Yeah.
Good tip. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. I hope you got some good insights into what's happening next year in HR. Hope you enjoyed our chat. And as I said, if you do have any questions around VAs, around Employment Hero, you can click the link in the chat here and you can talk to Amanda and she will help you out. But have an awesome afternoon and we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.